When we left off with our video series just before Christmas, we had spent the month of December looking at the Christmas story. Many people know the Christmas story. They know about the baby in the manger. They know about the shepherds on the hills. They know about the angels singing in the sky and the wise men following a star and bringing gifts for the newborn baby. A lot of people assume that all of that happened within the first couple of days of Jesus' life. But it's actually more likely that these things happened over the first couple of years of his life. We don't know much about Jesus' childhood. There are only a few stories mentioning his early life in the Bible. But out of those few stories, we can learn quite a lot about God's Son. In Jewish culture, a baby had to be presented at the temple in Jerusalem 8 days after they had been born. At this time, the baby would be given their name. Their parents would make an offering to God, and if it was a boy, they would be circumcised, as instructed in the law given by God to Moses. That's exactly what Mary and Joseph did after the birth of Jesus. They took him to the temple, made their offerings, had him named, and circumcised. While they were at the temple, they met a man named Simeon. Simeon was a holy man. He trusted in God, and God had promised Simeon that he would not die before he saw the coming Messiah. When Simeon saw Mary and Joseph bringing the baby Jesus into the temple, he knew that was God's son. He went over to them and he praised God, thanking him for fulfilling his promise to see the child. An old woman named Anna, who lived in the temple, also came over to Mary, Joseph, and the child Jesus. She gave thanks to God, and she told every single person who would listen to her that this was God's Messiah, the promised Saviour of Israel. Mary and Joseph stood amazed at all the things being said about their baby boy. Another assumption about the Nativity is that the wise men would have come later on the same night as the shepherds had been there. That's probably not the case. The star, signifying Jesus' birth, may have only appeared the night that Jesus was born. These men would have had to travel a very long distance, possibly taking months or even years to arrive at their destination of Bethlehem. They knew the star was a sign that a great king had been born, but they didn't know who this king was or exactly where to find him. If you were looking for a king, or in this country a queen, the most obvious place to go looking for them would be at the palace, wouldn't it? The wise men had the same idea. They went to the palace of Herod, who was king of Judea at that time. Imagine Herod's confusion and suspicion when the wise men showed up asking where the new king was. Herod wasn't actually the rightful king of Judea. He was frightened that the Jews would rally together under this new king to overthrow him. He was furious. He called together his priests and lawyers and asked them where the child was to have been born. It had been prophesied many years before that the Messiah, God's son, would be born in the town of Bethlehem. Herod devised a plot. He questioned the wise men, pretending that he too wanted to go and worship the child, but he really meant to go and kill him. He found out exactly where and when the star had appeared and sent the wise men off to Bethlehem, instructing them to come back and tell them where the child was. So the wise men set off from Jerusalem and headed to the town of Bethlehem, the star guiding them the whole way. Jesus was probably 1 or 2 years old when the wise men found him and his parents living in Bethlehem. We can only assume that Mary and Joseph perhaps chose to stay in Bethlehem and raise their child there. When they went to the place where Jesus and his parents were, they found the child, bowed down before him, presented him with gifts and worshipped him. The gifts that they gave, the gold, incense and myrrh, each symbolised who Jesus is as God's son and what he would do. While the wise men were still staying with the family, an angel appeared to them in a dream, warning them of Herod's plot to kill the child. The angel told them not to go back to Herod, but to leave Bethlehem and travel back to their country by a different route so that Herod wouldn't know. When Herod realised that the wise men would not be coming back to him, he was enraged. He sent out his soldiers telling them to go to the town of Bethlehem, gather every baby boy under the age of 2, and have them killed. Another angel appeared to Joseph in a dream, warning him of this plot. They told Joseph, "Take Mary and the child and go at once to Egypt. There's no time to lose. Herod's men are searching for the child, and if they find him, they will kill him." Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus successfully made their way out of Bethlehem and to the safety of Egypt, where they stayed until Herod died a few years later. Once again, the angel appeared to Joseph in a dream, telling them that it was safe to return to their hometown of Nazareth. Hundreds of years before this, when the Israelites were still captives in Egypt, the Pharaoh at that time was afraid that there would be an uprising from the Israelite population if they got any bigger. So he gave an order for all the baby boys to be taken from their homes and thrown into the River Nile to die. Moses was one of the children who was saved from this fate. He was actually adopted into Pharaoh's own household. Many years later, God used Moses to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt and out of their captivity. Why was it that when both of these men felt threatened in their leadership positions, they turned to an extreme of killing children? They were so obsessed with keeping power for themselves that they were willing to commit acts of unthinkable violence. But Herod didn't realise that Jesus wasn't coming to take his place as king of the region. No, Jesus was coming as king of all mankind, to set his people free from sin and to make a way for us to come back into a relationship with God.